Hello everyone, and welcome back. It is Misfits Racing League time. It's Friday, and we are here for the fifth and final race. Well, technically speaking, it isn't the final race of the week around Silverstone, but we are here for the club division in what would normally be the fifth race of the week, but unfortunately Tier 1 had to get rescheduled for tomorrow, so we'll have that tomorrow. But of course, still some fantastic racing around the iconic Silverstone, and none other than Unicorn joining me as always. Home Grand Prix, we've seen a few. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing good, and they've been good so far, which is always what we love from a home Grand Prix. It's to be expected from MRL, but the home Grand Prix, it's a little bit more exciting. And yeah, they've been good so far, and I think Club Division here is going to be exactly the same in terms of quality.
Take a look at the circuit, the iconic Silverstone, of course. I am a big fan of this circuit. It's so fast flowing, not a lot of heavy braking zones here. We have the DRS down the Wellington Straight as well as the Hangar Straight, and it's just it's such an iconic circuit. We've seen some very interesting races throughout this week around it so far. Now looking at the calendar, we have Hungary coming up next week for round 13, as well as Belgium, Italy, Singapore. We're going to Russia, Japan, the US, Mexico, and of course Brazil, and then we round things out in Abu Dhabi. Now, one thing to talk about is, of course, who's going to be driving today. Now, I do believe we have a fair amount of reserves on the grid. Club division, kind of one of those grids where I've been calling it the sandbox, Unicorn. Would you agree with that? We kind of have a mixture of every division in this tier.
Yeah, I guess There's to an extent these guys, a lot of them have had the league race prior at some point in the week around the same track. So yeah, I think that's a fair comparison.
Yeah, and it's not. It takes a lot to kind of do these races twice a week. I know some drivers they participate in more than one league as well. So crazy to see how much dedication they've been putting in. But of course, it's ZZ9 and Fraser over at Mercedes. We have Alex Bido and Jake for Ferrari, with Ben the Bear and Remco Van Putten over at Red Bull. Mito and Burke for McLaren. That's Seb and Arda over at Renault. Freeware and Finn for AlphaTauri, with Burke, Khan, and Jones over at Racing Point. Shenjay and Money for Alfa Romeo, with Tom and Sever and XTXP listed as the drivers for Haas. And you have Emre with Domi over at Williams. Take a look at the standings here for Club Division. I can just get this switched over. Things are getting a little hectic on the stream end. So many different divisions. Things like this, of course. Let's take a look at the club standings now. Alex Bido, 154 points. The Spaniards leading in the Ferrari. That's ZZ9 there in second. 145 points, with Shenjay right there in third, 134. Things quite spicy in and around this grid in the points section. Of course, you've Ben the Bear there in fifth, 97 points. Just too shy of where Fraser's sitting in that fourth slot. Mercedes is leading the championship with Red Bull in second, and that's going to be the Ferraris in third for this week. Stewart Report. Following Austria, multiple position changes after the post-race penalties were handed down and things were reviewed. So that is one thing to note. Those can, of course, always be found on racinghub.io. And with all that being well and good, I think we're just about ready to go. Racing here in Silverstone.
I do believe so. I don't know if there's one or two more people on their way. I've just seen a few notifications that people are launching the game. But other than that, yeah, I do think we are just about ready. We'll see.
More the merrier. No, it's a Friday. I think we can just rest easy, get ourselves all set for a nice, what I hope to be a cracking race. Considering how Austria went with these guys last week, Unicorn, I think big expectations are on the table here.
Yeah, we loved that race a lot, and if they can do the same thing around Silverstone, which is, a very I think Silverstone has more diversity in terms of the layout than Austria does. I love Austria. Obviously, Silverstone, a completely different beast, and I think if these guys can put on a similar display here, we'll be in for an absolutely brilliant race if they can pull out what they did last week.
What do you think about cops? It's been so difficult this week. Think we might see a little bit more of that today, or do you think that these drivers have had the the heads up by now?
I mean, you'd expect that, right? Especially we were just saying, most of these guys have been in those races where someone has come out through cops, and it's surprising to me that that's happened so frequently, and you'd hope that the drivers have learned their lessons. But yeah, I think with the track record that that corner has of taking pretty much 2 or 3 people out per race, I think it's inevitable that we see at least one person, even if it's just in qualifying, come off through there. I think qualifying is more likely as someone trying to push, as we do have final person joining the lobby. So we are ready and waiting to get started here. But yeah, I think cops, it'd be interesting. We've seen a few sort of freak incidents of people being off the track where we wouldn't expect it. But yeah, I think it makes it worth watching, these surprises that Silverstone has been throwing at us all week.
Yeah, definitely a lot of surprises. Yesterday we had 2 races. We had the Oceanic Grid. They had 3 safety cars. We had 2, if I'm not mistaken, in the Tier 2 running. The Tier 1 running was completely FUBAR, not the driver. And it was... Ooh, what is this? Looking like a little bit of clouds around Silverstone. I like to see that. But yeah, so Tier 1, unfortunately, has been rescheduled, and it will be taking place tomorrow in place of the Endurance Series. The Endurance Series has been postponed to now an off week for the Formula 1 Championship, which I do believe will be next week. We'll be racing around Suzuka. The Endurance Series will be back next week for Suzuka, and then tomorrow we'll get some Tier 1 racing instead on a Saturday night instead of the race we would have had yesterday. Well, we had the race, it just... Now we gotta have it again.
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of cloud swirling around above Silverstone here. I don't think it's actually raining at the moment. We'll have to wait and see. And it being a fairly long lap, I wouldn't expect it to be too long until we see these guys pushing as hard as they can if they do think rain is on the horizon.
We saw rain, I believe it was Tier 1, come down near the end of that qualifying session. And what was, I think, most saddening for the racers in that race was that we were going to see a weather dynamic near the end. And when we did end up seeing how that unfolded, it was basically China Tier 1. And it was unfortunate that the grid hadn't been as bunched up due to all of the connection desyncing issues. Otherwise, I think it may have been one of the spiciest race finishes I've ever seen. We'll have to see what we have unfold here, and we'll have to see what we have unfold tomorrow when the Tier 1 grid goes again. Burke in the McLaren coming down through Brooklands. He is the first driver out of the pit lane here. The Williams behind him. That's Swifty.
Yeah, I think rain would be very... We saw a brief glimpse of it in the EU race earlier this week, right at the end, where it played more havoc than it really should have with the drivers. It was still dry tyres, optimal, but a few people came in for the Inters, and that sort of cost them their race. So the rain, only being around for 5 laps or so, still played a big role in the outcome of that race. So if we see it come here in the club division, I'm sure it'll be a sight to behold as Burke comes down into the Vale chicane to start the first flying lap of the session.
So Mito in the other McLaren, if I'm not mistaken, is serving a qualifying ban today. I'll have to double check the official penalty advisory for the drivers just to verify, but yeah, I think that's why he is out of the session presently. He hasn't even exited that pit lane. His teammate, however, coming into the Wellington straight now. DRS wide open on the rear.
Just trying to see if I can find whether he is indeed serving a ban. I imagine that would be why it is.
Be listed in the there's an MRL penalty advisory channel there. May not have access because of maybe a roll or something like that, but that is totally fine. I'm nearly positive that's the case. Burke coming through Chapel. Onto that hanger straight. See what the first time is going to be, and we can have a little bit of a benchmark here for these racers. Swifty's jumped into the pit lane. Burke sets a 1:24.895. Nice lap from him. Next driver that's going to cross is Ben the Bear coming through Club. He's on the mediums. He comes a 1:24.955. Third driver through. That's Fraser. In the Mercedes, a 1:24.2 from the Dane. Freeware. The German in the AlphaTauri, as we've seen him all season, a 1:24.2.
Yeah, it's interesting that Ben, it looks like he's just sort of coming out for a warm-up lap on those mediums. I wouldn't expect him to finish this session with a time on the medium compound tyres. And if we're expecting rain, he clearly isn't phased by it.
Them and Severon on an invalidated lap. Wisp just crossed 7th quickest. Jake into 6th. Things are still fairly tight at the top of this field right now. You have Ben in the mixture there in 5th on the mediums. Tillman rounding that line, going to be going for another run here.
Yeah, ZZ9, he's just got a nice slipstream off of Fraser down the Wellington straight. We'll see how that impacts his qualifying run. As Astrolite crosses the line on 1:25.4, I believe that was.
ZZ9 and Fraser have been doing that give and go tow game all season long. I think it was most notable when we got to see it with them in Vietnam. Down that very long Sector 2 straight, they were very, very on top of it. So ZZ9 now coming down that hanger straight. He's got that DRS wide open coming through Stowe here, trying to hug that inside, utilizing the inside curbing and the exit curb, which we've seen a lot of drivers do this week, invalidate coming off that exit curb. Now, let's see how he goes through Club. Oh, neatly done. That's a very, very good time. A 1:24.1 out of the Mercedes.
Yeah, just freeway between them for first and second. And he's only a 10th off of ZZ9's time, and I doubt he got a slipstream off of his teammates. So freeware, excellent pace, but that's not to detract from ZZ9's lap there. Excellent time coming out of the Mercedes garage. Tim and Severs come back into the pits. He's not happy with his performance on that lap.
And the Bears just cruising right now on these medium compound tires, and there's no active drivers on flyers. Zamis and his teammate Astrolator are in the top 10 for the Renault boys. So Zamis will be good with a P4 presently. That's one thing to talk about. Zamis is going to be a full-time driver on this grid starting, I think it is today. Today is his first full-time drive on the grid. And to answer Mr. Handsome DB in the chat, I think it's a matter of concentration for the man as to why he's not streaming his races. But I do know he streamed earlier today, just to give you a friendly answer to that question here in the qualifying. Swifty on a flyer. He's coming through out of Luffield.
Yeah, I think if you're streaming every race, I think it's interesting to, if you come into a new one like this, see what you can do as Swifty. Big slide out of the cops and an invalidation there. He's held it, not spun. But that's going to be this lap over and done with for him. Alex Biddo, he's just come out of Woodcote. We'll see if he can take cops a little bit more successfully. He can indeed, looking very balanced in that Ferrari. We also just saw Henners, I do believe, join the session.
Yeah, it looks like Henners has jumped into a racing point.
Joining Steph there alongside him. Obviously, joining late during qualifying probably means he's going to be relegated to the rear of the grid, whatever his qualifying time is. So he might just sit this one out. Well, it's Alex Biddo. Still valid coming down into the Vale chicane.
Alex, a very fast driver, as we've seen all season. Top of the board. P5 on the first run from him. 124.706.
Yeah, money as well in the Alfa Romeo. He's just coming through Stowe. But he's going to come straight into the pits, despite the fact that his lap is valid. So, just not happy with it in some way.
Steph just went through Cops in the Racing Point. See what he's able to put together here. Ooh, real tight. Very tight. And I'd have to say quite fortunate that that didn't cause him a red circuit map on his end. 4 hours coming through Stowe.
Steph, he's about to set his first time of the session. As a lot of these drivers are on flying laps. Steph goes 6th fastest, so 124.7, just off of Alex Biddo's first lap.
Him and Sever has been struggling to get a lap through here. He's just about to head out of the Wellington, well, heading into the Wellington Straight here with the DRS now.
Ooh, Freeware improving, but he's 1/100th of a second off of ZZ9's provisional pole time. And Fraser, he's up out of Sector 1. If he can hold this, he might be able to dethrone Freeware and put 2 Mercedes on the front row of this grid at the time being. Although the clouds look like they're dissipating. So dry qualifying throughout, it would seem.
And the hanger straight for the Haas now. This is where we've seen it happen in the past. We'll see if Timon's able to keep it clean on that exit curve. Yeah, he snaps it to the inside. Doesn't want to run invalid there. Coming through the chicane now. What's the first lap going to be for this Haas? 125.063 into P11.
Yeah, a few notable mentions as well. Fraser did pretty much an identical lap time. He improved by 1/1000th of a second. Zamas improved by exactly half a second, so he jumps into P3, but then was knocked down by Shenjie, who set a 124.1 as his first flying lap of the session. So those front 4 guys, all within a second, as Fraser is, I think he's waiting for ZZ9. As Ben the Bear, a 123.8 coming out of the Red Bull driver. He's got off those mediums, and he's not messing around anymore.
Looks like we've had another latecomer into this session here. I do believe that may have been Seb.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing him prior to this moment, so...
Seb jumping into the session. I think
So
he is
early
normally
on there.
supposed to be in a Renault, but I think Zamis, or I think it may have been Astrodite, just taking a vacant car in a reserve capacity. Is okay. Of course, 19 drivers at this point. 3 drivers joined mid-session. Or was it 2? We got Henners, Seb.
Henners and Seb.
Yeah, it's 2 then. 50 coming through Stowe.
And ZZ9, he's about to cross the line. He did get another toe. It's an improvement of 123.9, so he becomes the second person after Ben to dip below the 124s.
50 jumps into P7. Nice time from him at 124.680 with money coming down, heading into Cops.
Yeah, Alex Biddo as well. He's just starting another flying lap in the Ferrari. Have to see if he can improve. Currently down in 8th at the moment. Not where he wants to be.
Money coming through Vale into the chicane now. B11, 124.999. Our timing board is reading 998, or at the very least mine is on the left-hand side.
Yeah, there's sometimes a little bit of desync because I don't know what causes it, but yeah, there's about 1/1000th of a second. I guess it gets rounded up, maybe rounded down on the timing tower. Not quite sure, but Alex Bitter then coming down through Stowe into the Vale chicane for the Ferrari. A lot of these drivers in the pit lane might be done for the session. They might have one more time, but it's Alex Bitter, 123.9. Just 0.003 of a second behind CZ9's second place time at the moment. He's not going to be happy with that, I shouldn't think. But third place, nothing to scoff at.
Finn gets a time in, 126.292 for his first valid run here. Seb is on an invalidated run in the other Williams. Not too many drivers on flyers presently, and when I say not too many, I don't think anyone's on flyers.
Yeah, not a valid one at least. So, just have to wait and see who is the next person.
It's Tillman in the Haas. It's going to be the first to cross the line on a fresh flying lap here.
Yeah, not too far behind him as well. Steph in the Racing Point. Both of these guys, 10th and 13th at the moment. So, plenty of room to improve up the grid.
Seb jumps into session, does a lap, and retires the car. Interesting strategy, sir. We'll see how it pans out. Possibly no time to get another run in, to be fair.
Yeah, and he probably would have been put to the back of this grid anyway. So, as Steph has a big slide coming through Luffield. He's managed to hold it though, and he's still valid. It's not what he wants to be doing at this moment in time.
Tillman coming through Maggots and Beckett's. Apple now, he has some traffic ahead of him. That's Zamis.
Yeah, the slides cost Steph. He's given up. Over a second down.
And there it is. I was talking about it earlier. Tillman coming out of Stowe. He took a little bit too much of the outside exit curve with his right-hand tire. And it tossed the lap out, and it was looking good for him. The Red Bulls are flying, or at the very least, Ben is.
No, I think that outside curb of Stowe is gonna have annoyed a lot of people this week. It's a very harsh track limit, as you see Ben. He's successfully navigated it down into Vale chicane. But yeah, it's not the most realistic of corner cutting as Ben goes even faster on 123.8.
Freeware 123.906 is his fastest run here. Zamis has had a bit of an issue, a bit of a snap coming through Cops in the Renault. And it appears he was down. There's a little bit of a connection problem there. So the Ben ran a 123.724. Just came up on my end here. A little bit of a connection desync.
Yeah, I don't know what that was because on my screen when he crossed the line it said he was a 1 second down, or 1 second up, should I say. And that's definitely not the case with Samus coming out to the pit lane. He's not going to be improving on his 124.1.
Benjay on an out lap right now. It looks like there's a Mercedes behind him. That's going to be ZZ9 on an out lap. Who is on a flyer? Not Jake. That's the other Ferrari of Alex Bitto who's about to begin. So a lot of drivers on their final runs.
Wisp seems to be struggling. He's 4 seconds down, it would seem, on his previous best. So his teammate on provisional pole. And it looks like the other Red Bull might be struggling here. He's going to finish the lap anyway, so whether it was some sort of issue on my end, but it is a 1:30 from Wisp. Finishes the lap out anyway.
50's invalidated. Burke is flying in the McLaren. He's got a couple drivers ahead of him. Fraser, I do believe, has assisted ZZ9 with a tow because he's not flying, but ZZ9, however, is.
Yeah, Shenja as well. He's just come onto the hangar straight and he's done an improvement, but it's 0.008 of a second. And right now, killing the gap between him and Zamus. If Zamus was still in the session, that might be the difference between positions, but right now, 5th is safe for Shenja. As he approaches the club, and around the final corner, it's an improvement, but not enough to up his position. ZZ9 improves as well, but again, not enough to improve his position.
Is Alex Bitter able to improve?
Spins.
Oh dear. That was a big slide out from the Ferrari coming through club, and he's not going to be too thrilled about that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much everyone accounted for here.
19 drivers, 17 with laps being set. Mito serving a qualifying ban. We have Ben the Bear, Freeware, and ZZ9, your top 3 racers ahead of this one. Quite the gap. From first to basically, I think that was 13th there, 12th, around a second.
Yeah, Ben the Bear showing once again that how fast he is in qualifying.
And the Bear on pole position. You have Freeware in second with ZZ9 rounding out your top 3. It's Alex Bitto in 4th with Shenja for your top 5. We'll go down through the rest of this grid with you. Come the formation lap. You can see the grid here on screen as well as all the gaps and times. I'm quite looking forward to this one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Everyone qualifying on soft, a staple of this week's racing. Usually we'd see a few people sort of try it on the mediums, but around Silverstone, these softs are so powerful compared to the other tyres, whereas usually they're offset by their limited, amount of laps that they can run. Around here, they can go, a fresh set could go half the race pretty much. Obviously, these guys are qualified on their sets. They have to factor that in. They'll have to pit a few laps earlier. And again, cloudy, not raining at the start. Whether we'll see some at the end of this race. I don't think we've got a weather report just yet.
If the drivers are in the chat, can give us a weather report. I mean, that would be absolutely fantastic. Because I want rain, really bad. I know you guys don't in the pit lane, but I definitely do. Always throws a monkey wrench into the equation.
Yeah, I'd love, something like dry, wet, dry. That would be lovely.
Well, taking a look at all the drivers on the grid we have, once again, Ben the Bear on pole position, Freeware in the AlphaTauri lining up next to him. It's the Red Bull AlphaTauri front row. You have ZZ9 there in 3rd, with Alex Bitto in the Ferrari in 4th. Shenja rounding out your top 5, Zamis in 6th, Fraser in 7th. That's Burke in 8th with Jake in 9th. Swifty rounds out the top 10 for Williams. Steph in 11th, Money in 12th. We have Tim and Sever in 13th, Astrodite 14th, and that's Wisp filling in for, I believe, Remco Van Putten today. Hanners in 16th, Finn over there in 17th position here. Mito, who served a qualifying ban, in 18th position, and Seb, who joined later in the session, failing to set a lap, in 19th for the other Williams.
Yeah, and tyre choices. A lot of drivers actually going for the medium tyres outside. There's 5 of them outside the top 10, as well as Mito. He's starting on the hard, so we'll have to see how he plays into this race. Safety cars could play a role here. We've seen a few. We saw 2 back-to-back yesterday in Tier 2. and that was very interesting to witness.
Something that I've seen here is with the safety car coming out, the drivers, they bunch up, they want to push, and with the tire wear especially, and the fuel load, and so when you come out of a safety car, you've got new tires, you maybe aren't adjusted to how the car feels, you're definitely not going to have the right temperature to be pushing hard. And what I've seen happen with these safety cars this week is you come out of the safety car, you have the restart. As soon as you get to cops, there's somebody trying to push somebody else, somebody goes off. And then the next safety car comes out. So we'll see if we have that dynamic here. We had it in Oceanic, we've had it in Tier 2.
Yeah, and I've heard people say that the tire temperatures around here are something that's rather tricky to get right. Whereas tire wear is very generous. Apparently, the tire temperatures are a little bit more on the tricky side of things as the drivers line up on the famous grid here at Silverstone.
4, 3. It's 5 red lights on here. Take us away, Unicorn.
Yeah, we're, as always, going to have to wait, it would appear, for the drivers to see what we're seeing. But there they go, they are revving up, and away we go here at Silverstone. Freeway, absolutely blistering start compared to Ben the Bear. His teammate Finn appears to be sitting the wrong way on the grid, but it is Freeway up into lead of this race. And now Alex Biddo is challenging Ben the Bear down for what is now P2 in the Ferrari. Behind them is a McLaren getting very sideways. I think that's Burke having a little bit of trouble. And the Renault as well as Zamas getting sideways. And there we go, we've got Seb, I think, or Swifty, one of the Williams. Seb, he's come off. I think he had a collision with Mito in the McLaren.
Fraser wheel to wheel with Zamas now. He's looking at him. That didn't help Zamas when he had that traction problem. And now Fraser here hunting him down. And this is where we might see it here. Ben the Bear on the rear of Alex Biddo. We're going to look to the front for a moment. Nothing doing. Jump back to Fraser. Follow along with the rear, and there goes a car. It's Henners, and he's out at cops.
He retired the car.
Oh yeah, he went into that wall hard.
Yeah, I don't know. And there it is, safety car.
Man, were we right or were we right?
Oh my goodness. I wasn't expecting it that quickly, but here we are. I also wasn't expecting Ben. He's had a really troublesome start here, down into third place. That's something I was expecting.
Henners is 2 for 2 in his race starts this week. He came into Tier 1 yesterday. He was out inside the first turn. Now he's come into Club today. He's out within the first lap. Tomorrow, Henry. We'll go get him next time in Tier 1. Lap 2, buddy. Lap 2, it's coming. Love you, man. Safety car on lap 2 here. Oh, wow. What a very unique race start. I mean, we've had a few losses. Henry being the DNF, of course. You can look at the position changes on the tower now.
Yeah, it's the safety car around here early as well is quite interesting because no one wants to get off of these softs. they're fine at this stage of the race. So it's just a case of, you know, basically just restarting the race to an extent, just rolling start compared to a standing start, whereas, you know, elsewhere it might tempt a few people in even this early on in the race.
Looks like there was a 5-second penalty that just flew up for, I believe it was Seb in the P12 Williams right now. And I believe it had said he had ignored a yellow flag, which is something that we have, as much as I hate to say, grown accustomed to on these safety cars. And it's not because of anything they think the drivers is doing. There's some kind of delta glitch that is requiring drivers to overtake one another under safety car. You know, illegal overtake this or somewhat. So that may be just Seb saying, I'm not playing this game today, and maybe the stewards can look at it later.
Yeah, it was Seb and it was for ignoring yellow flag, so you are 2 for 2 on that one. But it looks like the safety car is going to be going around on another lap. Finn not quite caught up to the grid, despite the fact that he will be by the time we will be ready to go racing again.
Well, it looked like Finn had some kind of traction issue because his car went and did a 90-degree right-hander off the line. It looked like coming off the rear view of Alex Bitto.
Yeah, he was definitely pointing the wrong way, which is something I don't think I've ever seen off the line in, you know.
Well, it's a home GP for him. I imagine he's not too thrilled about it, but the safety car has given him a second opportunity to catch up unimpeded here. And no standing start. He'll get that opportunity to have as much traction as he cares to get with his tires.
Yeah, it's not been a great race start for the home drivers. Finn being one, Henners being another. So the two Brits not looking too strong of a start. ZZ9's flag in game is set to Scottish, so with that being said, he, might call this his home Grand Prix, obviously a different country. Still under the UK banner though. As Fraser and Zamas seem to be having some sort of exchange.
The last time I told Scott I thought that Silverstone was the home GP, it was Max Singster, and he said interesting things back. That's all I'm going to say on that one. But we saw him have a very interesting race around here in Tier 2 yesterday, and I was saying to you how one good race can change your perspective, and he almost collected a podium. I don't know what the stewards were able to come up with after that race because we had some connection issues, but it was definitely fun to see Max Singster in the top 5.
Yeah, I think, if you have one good race, then the same token you can have a bad race, and that can change your opinion of a track for a long time until you're forced to do it again.
Well, race control says it's time. Freeware, Bitto, Ben the Bear, think it's time. Bitto, with a fantastic start up 2 positions here, is just sitting on Freeware now. He's got his tires up to temperature. He's waiting for the German to go. Looks like Freeware's let off coming out of, well, he's hammered it down, coming out of Stowe. Everybody in procession now coming through the chicane. And we're back to green flag racing as we cross the line. I'm going to jump to the back of this grid for a moment's time here as it's Wisp extremely tight to the rear of Mito, and it looks like Finn and Tim and Sever have had an exchange. Tim and Sever's gone round coming out of the final turn. So he is not going to be happy with that. Back to some action here. Wisps with a everybody's super tight on this restart. It's going to be hard to see where things land, and Tim and Sever still struggling. Coming through turn 1, you can see the yellow flag on the map there. Wisp having a look at Mito coming down through Brooklands. Nothing doing. Gonna jump on with Swifty. He's got his teammate Seb ahead of him by a fraction, and we'll see if he's got something for him coming through Cops. No DRS yet as a result of that safety car throwing a kink in the chain. Seb goes really wide coming through Cops here. Swifty's going to inherit some good time. The battle between 2 Williams, and I believe it's Swifty in the reserve capacity, of course.
Yeah, a lot of these drivers very just sort of... They're not far apart. They're pretty much all within TRS range of each other, but no one's quite within that striking distance that they need to be for overtaking to take place.
Just a big train of cars right now. Drivers, I think, being patient, not wanting to get a safety car thrown out right away. Wanting to have some green flag racing here. Swifty's actually just revving it out in 7th, coming through this first sector right now.
Yeah, coming down onto the straight. There's still no DRS in this race as of right now. Obviously that should all change next lap, provided there is no incidents.
50 sticks on the rear of Seb ahead. Meanwhile, Wisp and Mito wheel to wheel coming through Brooklands. It's going to be Wisp that concedes for the time being. It's the McLaren defending on the inside, and this is going to really give Steph an opportunity here. The Italian American sitting in that racing point right now wanting to shred whips to bits, but of course these guys need to be patient. Oh, Steph, don't do it, my man. That car wanted to go and fly away from him coming through cops.
Still, we're seeing this corner provide, difficulty for these drivers, despite the fact that we've seen it so many times. And
I think Steph is on a charge here, and I think he's got a little bit more pace in this car than the two drivers ahead of him, and I'm going to just follow along until we've got something really cooking up at the front, because he is tight. We got DRS kicking into gear now.
Yeah,
Swifty. Sorry to interrupt there, Swifty. I thought he was going for it with Seb, but they're just sticking with one another here, and everybody's being super patient.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see whether DRS is going to make any changes. ZZ9 is getting quite close to the rear of Ben the Bear as a result.
Steph with a charge. In Brooklyn's wheel-to-wheel with Mito. Around the outside now. That's going to be Mito on the inside in the orange McLaren. Steph around the outside. Does he have the traction to get it done? Seb is retired out of this race, and where has it happened? On the exit out of Luffield, and there it is, Unicorn, the second safety car in this one.
Yeah, just as we were about to get onto the hangar straight as well with DRS. We've got a second safety car already just 6 laps into this Grand Prix.
Now what's the call? Now what's the call here? Tires, tires, tires. Freeware leading this race. What's he going to do? He's coming down through. He's jumping into the pit lane. No, he's not. He's actually said no. And I don't know how he feels about this. That's very interesting.
I think these guys, I think hards should be able to go to the end. Maybe these guys might come onto mediums and sort of look for a second safety car, because I don't think... Could you get mediums all the way to the end right now? These drivers, Ben's gone for hards onto that Red Bull. This pit lane is very busy right now. But everyone appears to be going onto the medium compound tyres other than Ben the Bear. Yeah, everyone. Oh, Steph has opted for the hards as well. Everyone else on medium tyres. The top 6 have all stayed out. With Freeware and Jake on soft compound tyres. We'll have to see what sort of gap they can extend out here.
If they get another safety car, they're good. But it's going to be tough if they don't. If they get another safety car, Freeware and Jake, to get off of these softs, they're good. But it needs to happen soon.
Yeah, the other thing is, if there isn't another safety car, and these guys have to pit for mediums, in a few laps' time, they have a tyre advantage towards the end, and I don't know what the situation will be with the medium tyres that most of these drivers have just pitted onto at the tail end of this race, because mediums, they should be good from lap 9, so I think they probably will, actually. Thinking about this a little bit more, they should be okay to the end of this race. However, it's going to be a little bit more difficult than always, because an extra 2 laps is no small thing, especially on a longer circuit like Silverstone. So I think they will go to the end, as Jake thinks about the pit lane. He doesn't go for it though. So yeah, I wonder if we don't see another safety car, where Freeware and Jake will end up, because I think they might be able to make it to the end from this point forward on those medium compound tyres. So Alex Biddo, ZZ9 and Shenjie all in good position. If Ben's got pace on the hards, he's definitely making it to the end of this race.
I saw Ben drive yesterday in the Oceanic Division with some very tough company. And he was leading the race. Safety cars, just the same way we've seen it happen here, back to back, I think lost him that race. He drove a very clean race. He had superb pace. and he had a major gamble. He decided to stay out on circuit against a very fast driver, Alfa Romeo Esports development driver Mr. Revo. Jumps onto fresh softs. And the Bear is leading the safety car restart on mediums. I think 14 laps old at this point. The pace differential was mega. But he had some very, very good Silverstone pace. So I think that should he have that reflect into this race on these hards, he is in very good position. Very good position here based on what I saw yesterday.
Yeah, and if he's already had that experience, and this is what we're saying about this sort of being this sandbox of drivers, as you described it earlier, where Ben's had this race already this week, and now he's got a little bit more clued in as to how the strategy plays in, because obviously you can have practice races, etc., but a real-life example coming at him yesterday is going to give him a little bit more insight into how this race is going to develop, and he's not the only one who's had a races this week as the safety car gets called in. But yeah, we'll have to see how his decision plays into his hands or into his competitors' hands.
Well, to give you perspective, Freeware, Jake, Astrodite, Alex Bitto, Shenjay, Ben the Bear, Fraser, Swifty, Zamis, Wisp, Steph, and Henry, which is a very, very good portion of this grid, have all had at the very least one run around here so far in a racing setting this week. And we are away. It's hammer down for Mr. Freeware, Jake, and Astrodate following suit here. And Ben the Bear isn't going to give anybody serious opportunity to breathe as we're back to green flag conditions. Look, there was a car there. May have been Alex Bitto quite wide.
No, it's Mito in the McLaren, and he's caused Finn to spin. He's just too slow around the first corner because he was not got that acceleration. He's clipped Finn there. Maybe Finn was going for a gap that didn't exist, but either way, the AlphaTauri driver down to last place on this grid.
Benjay on the hunt. ZZ9, the first target. The battling, these drivers need to be very careful because here on this restart, everybody on these fresh tires, things are equalized quite well. And people are going to be looking to capitalize on any kind of mistakes or holdups that may fall through this train of cars.
Yeah, and I think that little spin there from Finn might have, I don't know if ZZ9 had to avoid Finn's car, but there's a gap between him and Alex Bitto. As Steph has had an issue coming through Maggots and Beckett's. He's appears to have reset his car to track there, but he'd just been overtaken by Wisp, I think. So I don't know whether there was contact between the two drivers.
Zamis on the inside coming through Stowe. He gets Swifty. We'll see if Swifty's able to do something about it. Swifty and Zamis, teammates on a regular basis for Tier 1. Freeware comes across on 127. Swifty, a little bit too much of that inside curve. I think he unsettled his car there. He'll lose time to Zamis doing that. Genjay, however, very tight to the rear of ZZ9, but it's going to be Alex Bitto within half a second of Mito for P5, and he goes for a move to the inside. There was a bit of a slip coming out of the McLaren, it would look like. We'll have to take a look in on Alex Bitto to see if he lost any...
He lost an end plate.
Oh dear, so he's not going to be too thrilled about that. It looks like the door was open. Mito tried to shut it perhaps, but Mito's going to lose out even more than the Bear into 8th position. Shenjay through.
Yeah, and now Alex Bitto in a wounded Ferrari, and he's got 3 very quick drivers on pretty much equal tires with the exception of Ben's hards. And they're going to be looking to take advantage of that. I wouldn't be surprised if any of them saw the end plate come off with how close this grid is right now.
Oh, and these drivers are always looking for that too. They're just sitting there waiting for it.
Yeah, these guys know. They're like a shark that smells blood. Here we go. ZZ9 and Shenjay, both hungry and looking at Alex, but I don't think they're going to be close enough down into Stowe this time around. But depending on ZZ9's exit, is Alex Bitto very wide. But he holds on to 5th down into the Vale chicane for this lap. DRS is now re-enabled. And Alex Bitto right now is a sitting duck in that Ferrari.
Yeah, why risk it without the DRS for a lot of these drivers? If he's got damage, he's going to feel it big time. And Alex Bitto, 2 seconds away from P4 right now, is putting a kink in this massive train. But I imagine all of these drivers behind him are going to really start to get frustrated. Alex Bitto, even with damage, he's not the type of driver that just goes down easy.
And this is working really well for Freeware, who needs to open up this gap. And he's got 3.3 seconds to second place as ZZ9 around the outside of Luffield. He's looking at Alex Bitto. They're still side by side. ZZ9.
Alex Bitto is placing his car perfectly. ZZ9 had him dead to rights coming through into Brooklands, but it was Alex Bitto's car placement that cost him the opportunity at P5 for the time being. The only thing here is it's cost the entirety of this grid behind him a lot of time. He knows that he's going to get caught. The question is, how long can he hold out? ZZ9 now, DRS overtake coming down through the hangar straight. There's another exchange. Zamis has had an issue. He's had an issue coming through Chapel. Now wheel to wheel coming through Stowe. On the inside is the Mercedes. Is he going to get it done? Alex Bitto, we saw it last lap. He's had to go wide. He has another car in on this mix, but he's still holding this position. Using the circuit as best he can to compensate for the damage on that car. And now Shenjay is going to have a run at ZZ9. And I was saying it before, you really have to pick and choose your battles here. Ben the Bear smells the blood too.
Yeah, Shenjay hyper aggressive right now, and it's really working out for him. He tried to go 3 wide down into the Vale chicane to take ZZ9 around the outside, and almost worked out for him. He was a bit too much on the grass, though. Now he's hunting down Alex Bitto. He's got DRS around the outside of Brooklands. He's a little bit too far back. Is he going to get the switch back? Ben the Bear and ZZ9, they're switching positions behind them. ZZ9, he's holding on to 7th around the inside of Luffield. And Ben the Bear, he's still there, though. They're side by side coming out of Woodcourt. Shenjay hasn't been able to get Alex Bitto, but Ben is now up into 7th place. These hard tyres are not holding him back. Is Shenjay going to go for the move? No, he's going to wait before Baggers and Beckett. You love to see that patience, but you can see the pace that Alfa Romeo has through these corners compared to that damaged Ferrari.
I think this might have cost Shenjay here. Ben the Bear is charging behind them, but the DRS, the quick slip, going to be good for him. Jake now getting taken by Astrodite in the fight for podium positions. Shenjay round the outside through Stowe gets Alex, and Ben the Bear is going to be looking for a position very soon now as Alex has been overtaken and dropped into P5. You see, it's going to be Jake in the other Ferrari. He has jumped into the pit lane now. 12 laps, excuse me, how long he went on those softs. So things are going to start to get interesting for the drivers that come onto some very fresh rubber, and he's going to go onto some mediums here.
Yeah, I expect Freeware to do the same this lap. It's too late to wait for a safety car. Those tyres, they need to get rid of them.
What a fight we're having in this midfield right now. You can see the timing tower right now. It doesn't lie. A lot of these drivers are super close together, and it's going to be Swifty.
Shenjay! Alex Bitto! Shenjay's pointing the wrong way. He's managed to recover his car. But Ben the Bear pressuring on the inside of Luffield. Don't know what was happening there, but there was a Ferrari. And Alfa Romeo. Shenjay's going to try and defend her on the outside of Cops, but it's not going to happen.
Ben the Bear going to be happy about that. It's an easy position for him now. Alex Bitto, look at the damage costing him through Meggetts and Beckett's here, and how smooth Ben is in comparison. He's going to eat this Ferrari alive.
Yeah, and Shenjay's picked up a 3-second time penalty for running wide out of Beckett's.
Wheel to wheel between the two Mercedes now coming through Stowe. It's Fraser and ZZ9 having an exchange, and Burke's in on this action as well. They're 2 wide coming through the chicane on the rear of ZZ9. On the inside now is Burke and the McLaren. Shenjay, Burke there comes into a little bit of contact. Shenjay and Alex Bitto now. Alex Bitto drops to the Alfa Romeo. Swifty on the rear of Mito going to want to jump into this and get some more points.
All of this battling has allowed these drivers in the final points positions to catch up to these guys fighting over, 4th to 7th. And now what is this, 8th through 11th? They've all caught up. The ZZ9, Alex Bitter runs wide through Brooklands. And ZZ9, we've seen him around the outside of Luffield before. He's trying it again. Is Alex Bitter going to be able to hold him once more around Woodcourt? The damage is still on that Ferrari, and he's still in 6th place somehow.
I think Alex Bitto has a habit of setting that Ferrari up like what we would like to see in the real world, and that's a very, very fast Ferrari down through straight line. And we've seen it through coming out of Woodcote. I can never pronounce it correctly. I always forget. But of course, you have Alex Bitto now. He can't do much on the hanger straight. The DRS comes into play. It's so much fighting that we're seeing. And he's got the damage, and he's doing so well. Shenjie ahead of Ben the Bear into 4th position. Freeware has jumped into the pit lane. He's getting off the softs. He's gone 14 laps on those softs. He's come into 4 mediums. And I have a feeling he's going to be the fastest car on circuit for the next little bit with the fresh rubber. We have quite a few laps remaining here to go, and a lot of intense fighting happening all along the way.
Yeah, he's so far back though. That's his problem. He's going to struggle to catch up here without a safety car aiding him to do so. And even then, everyone's going to probably want to come in for some softs.
50 on the inside of Mito coming down through Brooklands. Switching back to the outside now as they move through Luffield. That's the McLaren on the inside. Swifty and the Williams wanting to get this move done. It's the McLaren versus the Williams here around Silverstone, and it's going to be Swifty through, exiting out of Luffield, and it was very neatly done from him to jump into P8. That was just some clean racing.
Yeah, and this fight for what is effectively the race lead, if you want to say.
Fraser. He's really stepped in it now, Unicorn. He was tight to the rear of Alex Bitto on the exit through Chapel. And he's lost his front left end plate. Swifty sneaks through into 7th position, and now his turn to go at the Spaniard.
So, the first of the 2 front runners, Money, coming into the pit lane. Presumably from fresh softs, taken to the end of this race. Fraser as well follows him in. Gonna get that pit front wing repaired.
This has been a fantastic race, I have to say. I've been thoroughly enjoying all of the battling, especially in the midfield. The strategy differential that the safety cars have thrown into the equation. You have Fraser and Money both onto soft compound tires now. They're going to have a lot of pace, especially at the start.
Yeah, I want to see if Freeway can close that 11-second gap and start getting himself into some more meaningful points. But right now, there's still plenty of battles going up along this grid. We've got Mito, who's just picked up a 3-second time penalty, coming through Cops, taking a little bit too much of the grass on the inside, and that's cost him time to his teammate behind. Is this going to give Burke the run? Look at him through Maggots and Beckett's. He is absolutely flying. The hard compound tires on his teammate's car not paying dividends for him, and Burke with DRS and overtake is going to fly past his teammate, and just ahead of them, Swifty is going to look around the outside of Alex Bitto. He's looking for a switchback through Stowe. He's not going to get the exit he needs, though, down into the Vale chicane. And that wounded Ferrari still holding on. We've got a yellow flag. What has happened here?
There's a Red Bull. Wisp has retired in the pit lane. And it was Mito that jumped into the pits, as well as Astrodate onto some soft compound tires. Freeware has just set the fastest lap of the session, a 127 flat so far here in this race. And Swifty, within half a second of Alex Bitto. Alex Bitto, with damage, is just... he is holding it so hard here.
Yeah, it's a sight to behold. Timing tower playing tricks on me right now. But Ben the Bear, he seems to be really able to keep up with Shenjie despite the tyre difference between them here. And I think towards the end of this race, he might be a real threat for the top spot on that podium.
Another driver to talk about here, Zamis in P7 right now. He's a second behind Burke. Burke tight to the rear of Swifty. They've all got DRS, but if Zamis is able to get within that DRS, and I think he may have just done so. No, he didn't. Not yet. Not on this occasion, but Burke looking at Swifty on the inside through Stowe. Is he going to get that move done? Yes, he is. Very neatly done out of the McLaren.
Yeah, these guys are super close together right now. I don't see that changing for the time being. Burke's had a really good race here this evening. He's made a fair few positions. He's up 3 places from where he started, and he just seems to be in control of that car, well composed. He hasn't been, you know, as Swifty goes into the back of him. Alex Bidot might have had a little bit of lag there, and Burke has gone into the back, and I think, yeah, Burke's lost an end plate. We were just complimenting him. We might have whacked him with a compliment to his curse, as Zamis as well. He's spun it, coming onto Aintree. So I think that's the loop, and down into 8th place, coming down on Wellington Straight. There's no damage on that runner though.
Yeah, just 10 seconds of damage to where he was though. And that's not going to be very good for him. He's not going to be too thrilled about that mistake. And the bear within half a second of Shenjie with ZZ9 behind him. It's Burke less than half a second away from the Spaniard, who's been defending very well with what he has on that front end. And what he has isn't a front end plate, that's for sure. Swifty barking up the rear of Burke now, coming down the hangar straight. Burke with a move. He looks at the outside of Alex. Is he going to get the switchback here? Alex just sitting that car like he does not want to lose it. It's wheel to wheel coming through the chicane here. Is Burke going to get him around the outside? He's got the traction. Alex with an issue on the inside curbing. He's lost 2 and 1.
Yeah, that was very close to being a spin for the Ferrari. And Swifty's just waiting here, and he is in a very good position. He's smart to be waiting because he knows both of these guys have got damage.
And there's a tap. Oh.
Ben the Best going for the lead of this race up the inside of Shenjie down into Brooklands. He's now taken P1 away from the Alfa Romeo. As Burke up the inside of Alex Bidot. They're still fighting for 5th place. Burke now into 5th place. And Swifty, he's taken 4th. So this race far from over with 7 or 8 laps to go.
Oh, Burke looking real tight to the rear of Swifty. He's got Alex Bidot barking up his rear. And we've got Shenjie wanting to get that position back from Ben the Bear. Of course, there could be penalties that play a role in this one, but very glad to see we've got 15 drivers running right now, and they're all within relatively close proximity. Drivers costing themselves a little bit with some spins in this one, but fairly clean race thus far. Burke under threat now. Alex Bidot up the inside through Stowe. He's very late on the brakes. He gets the car around. Is he going to get the exit? No way, Jose. Burke holds it in 5th for now. But it's another lunge down into the chicane, and that's the Ferrari squeezing himself through and says, I want P5, sir. And I'm in the red Ferrari, and I really want to go fast, so I'm going to hold this for now. Burke going to have another opportunity. We're on lap 20. And I have to say, all of these drivers, Burke, Alex Bidot with the wing damage, I think it was... Well, Swifty had a clean wing, but it's crazy to see that Alex has been able to maintain himself in this top running for such a duration. At this phase of the race, we'll see if the tires are able to help him for the long run, because it's going to be even worse for grip trying to get that car around with no end plate.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Burke has no end plate as well is what's... You know, we've seen Alex be so defensive for the past few laps, but now Burke comes in and tries to fight him, and you've got these 2 damaged cars, identical damage on a pair of them, and Alex Bidot's like, well, I've been dealing with this for, 10 or so laps, and he's just so flicked that switch, and he's, going for these moves. You can see the gap, almost a second between the two, so Alex Bidot managing that damage very well, and Burke struggling, it would seem.
Well, they've both just taken a 3-second time penalty coming through this second sector here. Well, it was Alex coming, I think, into Maggots, or if not, on the exit of Cops, he did it. Steph's just taken a 3-second time penalty, so there is going to be penalties in this race that play a factor here. More so for these guys in the top, and it's Freeware now. He's had a move on to, of course, Burke into P6. He's on very, very fresh mediums. He's got a clean front wing. And he's on a very good strategy. And of course, we saw him pit quite late. He was in the top 3 running for some time. Take a look at the position changes as well as the gap to leader on the board right now. You have, of course, Shenjay up 3 positions from where he began. Swifty's up 6. Alex Bitto started this race in 4th. He's down into 5th right now. Freeware started this race in 2nd. So he's going to want to jump ahead back to that position. But, of course, he's on a different strategy. Finn, Mito, Astrodate, all winning quite well here.
I'm not sure what happened to Burke there, but he seems to have some sort of connection issue. He's reloading the game, but this is going to cost him even more time. You can see the gap between him and Freeway just extending now. That's the front 3 still in the same order. DRS keeping them all together. As Burke able to rejoin the session.
This is very difficult for drivers going an entire race when you have less than half a second behind you, because as we've seen throughout all of the season, Jake and Astrodate having an exchange. Astrodate through in the inside, coming into Stowe. To interrupt myself there, looks like Astrodate into P9 now on these softs. If Jake's able to do something about it in a moment's time, but like I was saying, all of these drivers, they can't make a mistake. If they make a mistake, they're just gone. It's, you know, Zamis, he lost 8 seconds or 10 seconds when he made his spin just ahead of that Wellington straight, and he dropped massively in comparison to where he could have been, considering he was, you know, crawling up the rear of Alex Bitto and Swifty.
And speaking of mistakes, Freeware, he's just had a little bit of a wobble coming into Aintree and onto that Wellington straight, so he lost a little bit of time. He's been catching so well on these fresh mediums towards these drivers, Alex Bitto and Swifty. 14 lap old mediums on the pair of them, whereas Freeware 6 laps old mediums. He's going to have pace here at the tail end of this race, and you can see he's already caught up despite that issue. Both he and Alex Bitto have got DRS, but Freeware's just got that exit out of Chapel and down up the inside of Stowe on Alex Bitto. And even with Alex Bitto's excellent defensive driving, he's not going to be able to get the move to hold Freeware behind him, and Freeware now up into P5. The strategy playing out pretty well for him.
Well, I don't think Alex Bitto is in the best of moods at the moment, considering how he did lose that end plate. I can only imagine we'll see a report come across the steward's desk for that one, because it was a unique situation in his fight with the McLaren there. I do believe it was Mito. Correct me if I'm wrong. It may have been Burke, but it was a McLaren, I can guarantee that. Freeware less than half a second.
He's come in for some fresh softs, though, after a disconnect. So whether the AI pitted him for softs or not. It's so late in this race, but maybe an attempt for flying lap, even though he's probably not going to get back into the top 10 for the point.
On the inside now, coming out of Woodcote, coming through into Cops now. Who's going to concede? It's very, very, very tight here. Wheel to wheel coming through Cops isn't something you see every day, and it's not something I'd recommend to ever see. It really gets you gripping your chair. And Freeware has made it through into 4th position. And guess who? It's Alex Bitto, who is still on the rear of this Williams, and I imagine Swifty's not too thrilled about it. It took him ages to get rid of him.
Yeah, side by side through Cops, it's a sight to behold if it's done right, you know. Daniel Ricciardo did it a couple times in one of this year's British Grand Prix. So obviously, we had 2. But only a few laps left here around the MRL Club Divisions version of Silverstone, and still Ben the Bear in lead of this race ahead of Shenjie and ZZ9. These 3 haven't exchanged positions in a short while. ZZ9, yeah, picking up a 3-second time penalty on the outside of Luffield as well. It's not somewhere we've really seen too many people pick them up, I don't think, but I'll have to see what the situation is between them.
Alex Bido within half a second of Swifty with that wing damage. I imagine he'll be happy with the recovery to get P5. The question is, will he be able to get it? We have 3 laps remaining, counting the present lap. So it's going to be a unique situation. Freeware's just taken a 3-second time penalty.
Yeah, and looking at the penalty situation of these front few, ZZ9, he's just picked up his first one. Shenjay's got 2. He's on 6 seconds worth of time penalty, and Ben the Bear is squeaky clean. So ZZ9 has to stay within 3 seconds of Shenjay to take that second spot on the podium, and ZZ9 and Shenjay has got 6 seconds, but he's not going to drop off the podium, I don't think, because Freeware 15 seconds behind with penalties of his own.
Money on some 7-lap-old, soon-to-be 8-lap-old softs here has caught up with Jake and Astrodate. And this could be very good for the Alfa Romeo. An ultimate lap of this race. Take a look at the gap to leader. Nobody's been lapped in this one. 4 retirements. Wisp, Seb, Tim and Sever, and Henners. Henners was the first to go, coming through Cops on the opening lap.
Yeah, and I think Wisp did it in the pit lane as well, and so a fairly small number of DNFs. Shenjay getting close to Ben the Bear, but not quite making the move down into Stowe. He's got 1 lap left. 2 DRS zones to try and take Ben the Bear on track. I don't think he's going to be able to keep it there, though, so I think his best chance is to try and extend 2 more seconds to ZZ9, which is still a very, very challenging task. Neither of them really have any ERS to play with.
No, they've really had to be consistent on their ERS. Everything. These guys have not been able to make a mistake this entire race. The 3 of them have just been running in this trio, start to finish pretty well, and the pressure is immense.
Yeah, they've come through the Wellington Straight, no position changes to speak of. And the gap is just pretty large between them, 3 of them. The same can be said for Alex Bido, Swifty and Freeware. And it shows you've had a good race when you're considering 8 tenths to 1 second, a large gap.
Jake on the inside coming through left field right now. He's got Astrodate. Ooh, Astrodate. Going a little wide there, a little bit of contact right now. The Ferrari's through into P8, but Astrodate isn't finished with him. He's looking at the inside, coming back on him. He gets back through, coming ahead of Cops. And that was a nice move from Astrodate to get that position back, but this is going to cost Jake, I think, money. And the Bear collects the flag. ZZ9 second, Shenjay third. We still have fighting here on the hangar straight right now. Money with a move out to the outside. Jake on the rear of Astrodate. Where's he going to go? It's 3 wide coming down into Stowe. It's Astrodate on the most inside. He's going to get through. It's still wheel to wheel between Money and Jake. Money gets through into 9th position as these drivers take the checkered flag. Oh, and we have a little bit of an intense finish for this final points position here. What's it going to come down to penalty-wise? And it looks like it's going to go Ben the Bear with the win. ZZ9 second position here. Shenjay rounding out your top 3 podium racers with Freeware in 4th. That's Alex Bido in 5th. Swifty in 6th. Zamis finishes 7th with his teammate Astrodite in 8th. A good finish for the Renault team. Money in 9th with Jake rounding out your top 10 in the Ferrari for the final points. Now, let's take a look at fastest lap really quick here. It was Fraser that held on to it, so that point gets tossed, and the Mercedes squad not going to be too thrilled about that in their fight to maintain leadership of the constructors' standings. Of course, Mito in 12th, Steph in 13th, Burke in 14th, and Finn now will be the last driver to cross here in the AlphaTauri. And that wraps up our 4th official British Grand Prix of this week. Of course, Tier 1 tomorrow for the rescheduling. We will have that at 5:15 p.m. CDT, 11:15 p.m. BST, in place of our normal endurance series. I hope you guys enjoyed that race. Unicorn, what'd you think?
I think Club Division giving us another excellent race. Maybe not quite as exciting as Austria was last week, but that was a tall order to beat. But these guys, they're so close on this grid, and you've got these constant battles throughout the entire race. You know, it's just an absolute joy to watch. The podium, you know, Shenjie missing out on second place down to penalties. Alex Bitter as well. He got past Swifty on penalties as well. Freeware on fourth. He started second. Maybe he made the right call to stay out on those softs. Maybe not. It was difficult for him, and it shows there with fourth place. Whether he's going to be disappointed with that or not. But yeah, great race, some really great drives. I mean, Swifty, even though he finished fifth on track from 10th on the grid, finishing sixth, still great. Astrodiite, 14th to 8th. So yeah, a lot of interesting things. Cops caught out a couple of people.
Only 4 wing repairs in that entire race, fun fact. Checking back at the race director for pit stops. And we know Alex Bido wasn't one of them. What a defense.
His defense that entire race was absolutely incredible on that. And you can see what it might have cost him as well, because obviously he was fighting Burke with that damaged front wing, and he's finished 14th as a result of that damage, a wing change, etc. So, and also he disconnected, so a few problems there as well. But Alex Bido, he did very well to finish fifth after everything that was thrown his way.
I thoroughly enjoyed that race. I hope you guys all enjoyed it tuning in. Greatly appreciate everybody who jumped in to watch the race. Of course, that is going to be it for us today. We are going to be back tomorrow evening with the Tier 1 rescheduled race. And then next week, we are going to be back with the Endurance Series on a Formula 1 off week, just to make up that race for you, which will be, of course, Suzuka. And next week, we jump into, of course, the Hungarian Grand Prix week of racing, which I think is going to be very unique considering how we saw things go in the very, very first tight portion of the calendar, Unicorn. Now we've had a little bit of open concept. We had France, Canada, things started to widen up. We've had Silverstone now. Let's see how they go around a circuit that is not the most ideal overtaking circuit. A lot of turn 1 overtaking going to be happening in Hungary. I am looking forward to it. Of course, if you're interested in joining a fantastic race community, looking for open lobbies, things like that, go no further. The Misfits, I promise you, you will enjoy yourself. And of course, that is where we run the league. So if you're interested in racing in an organized setting, that's available as well. Of course, all the replays, highlights, fun stuff like that, guys. Check out the YouTube. And thank you so much once again for watching. My name is Strifium. Joining me has been Unicorn, of course. And thanks again, guys. We're going to see you tomorrow for starters, and the next week for Hungary. We're going to head on over and raid. I believe Brownie's streaming. So we'll hit up Mr. Brownie and head on over there and say hello. So thanks, guys, and see you tomorrow.